Hey everyone, this is a racial healing challenge video in response to the Dixon White video. Um, he challenged everyone to speak about their experiences with white supremacy and living in this country and different racial aspects of their life. I grew up in Northwest Indiana, about 15 minutes south of Gary, Indiana. And because of Gary, Indiana, being a notoriously unsafe town, I grew up around an entire town filled with racism. There were no people of color, and if there were, they received a lot of backlash. An Asian family moved into our town, into my subdivision when I was little, and their house was graffitied and teepeed. Gary, Indiana in the 50s or 40s was an up and coming steel mill town. Everyone was moving there. It was very white, suburban town. And I'm sorry, I don't know the exact history of everything, but it started to become more of a mixed community. A black mayor was elected. People started freaking out that black people were moving into their town. And what is white flight? They all sold their houses for whatever they could get for it in a panic and moved about 15 minutes south to where I'm from. So my friends' parents were raised by complete racists, and then my friends' parents were raising my friends as racists. The N-word was thrown out all the time. Nobody even knew black people. We would go to a neighboring town to the mall, and that's the only time experience that I had or other people had with people of a different race. There was no one-on-one connection, contact whatsoever. It was us and them. My parents, thank God, were amazing, and we traveled to the Caribbean islands since I was 6 years old. And we didn't just go to the Caribbean and stay at the tourist spots. We went into the rainforest, into the banana groves where the locals lived. We brought them toys. We made such connections with the islanders. We still talk to them to this day. They were like family. Stayed at their houses in the banana fields. When we could have been at our posh hotel down the street, we were always with them and learning about their culture. And then I would go back to Indiana and hear the N-word and, oh, they're disgusting or this and that. And I remember being 6, 7, 8 years old and challenging my friends' parents dead on. Have you ever met a black person? Have you ever talked to a black person? What do you know? How could you call them that? I would cry. I would literally argue with my friends' parents to the point of tears because I was so frustrated. And my friends were getting that influence, and it, even at such a young age, it hurt me so much because I had family that was black, and I did not understand the hatred or how they could feel that way. I had no comprehension whatsoever. So that was my experience being young. And John, we flew him from St. Lucia to Indiana so that he could experience snow in America and roller coasters and everything. He was just a poor man from St. Lucia who had never seen the world. And he loved it. He stayed in our subdivision. We got horrible looks. People judged us. They had nothing nice to say. There were people who wanted to meet him and were nice and not racist, but for the most part, I don't think they really could understand how we were so close to a black person. He came to my elementary school probably when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade because, you know, it was just a small town in Indiana, and we wanted him to come and talk about St. Lucia and just a different culture. And I remember that was met with a little bit of hesitation, like, should we let him come talk at the school? What are the parents going to say? It was ridiculous. But he did end up coming to the school and everything was fine. I don't think he was met with enormous hatred, but maybe my mom knows more of the situation. I have always been aware of my privilege as a white person being in this country. I went to public school from 2nd grade to 6th grade. Every single person in the school had a Macintosh computer to take home, and we learned how to type in 2nd, 3rd grade. I knew how to use a computer from such a young age. Those going to public school 15, 20 minutes away in Gary, Indiana, I don't think they had the same exact experience. And these are both public schools. I've never been harassed by a police officer in any regard. I've never had any legal trouble whatsoever. And there's things that I've done that another person of color could do, and they would be going to jail. And that is just the experience of being a white person in America. Unfortunately, not everybody is met with the same privilege. I've always known who was going to succeed. Me in Crown Point, Indiana, knowing how to type, having computer knowledge at 2nd, 3rd grade, or someone 15 minutes away from me, living in the ghetto, that we created. I moved to Florida when I was 13, 14, and it was so refreshing to finally be in a school where there was mixed races. I could finally have friends of different colors without being a freak. There was still segregation and racism even with a mixed community. We moved to Sarasota, Florida, and there's an area called Newtown, and that's notoriously where the black community lives. And people are scared to drive through Newtown, or just always making comments of Newtown, whatever. The hatred still went on. I grew up thinking, oh my gosh, if I lived in a different place, you know, I wouldn't have to deal with all this racism, these racist comments all the time, and trying to defend against it. But when I moved to Florida, and everyone on the surface seemed so mixed, like it wasn't a big deal anymore. Going from Crown Point, where you did not see anybody of color, nobody of color, and then moving to Sarasota, where you saw a complete integration of color, but still many rednecks and other, you know, white supremacists hating against, oh my gosh, there's so many Mexicans here, they're taking all of our jobs, or whatever, you know, the comments. So that is when it really hit me that it doesn't matter where you live. If you are in America, it doesn't matter what town you're in, how integrated it is, how accepting the culture seems to be, racism is everywhere. And it is not dead. And it has continued to hit me in the face, especially when certain events are being shared on Facebook and you read the comments, and the hatred going back and forth is disgusting. And it is just like being back when I was 6 years old and saying, what? What are you talking about? How could you hate somebody based on their color? How could you fault them for having to grow up with so much less privilege than we were given for no reason? Like, what did I do to be able to receive those computers and a better education? Nothing. I was born in the right place by the right set of parents. Like, it's disgusting. I don't want to go on, but I could. Thank you, Dixon White, for opening this door for people to share their stories. I hope that everyone can see that by how many views you've received and how many responses to this challenge, that there are white people that do want to, we want the same goals, we want the same equality as people of color are searching for. I hope we can all band together and do something more about it, but it starts with us.